Shake it, everybody. I'm back. Chad's back. We're back. It's House Divided on a Friday, just before spring break, just the way you want us. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Specs chat. Shout out to everybody who will be jumping in and reminding us, yes, you do need to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, get notifications, all of those things all at once, and then we'll still annoy you every single day after you've done so. It helps. It matters. It does the algorithm thing. We do this show for free, maybe just a bare minimum of a click or two as a way of saying thanks. Or you can send a lot of money to us in the way of super chats. We do love those more than we like the thumbs up clicks. If you just full transparency, I don't want to speak for everybody, but we do like those things. Chad, we'll jump right into it. There's a lot of kind of fun stuff to get into. The Texas football roster released the updated roster within the last hour, and you and I are still combing through all of. You're looking at jersey numbers, and I'm looking at height and weights and jersey numbers.
Okay, all right. That's the. It's always interesting. What's the first thing that draws people's eyes? But yeah, I was immediately going to jersey numbers, and you and I were mentioning it that little X, so to speak, has now taken X's number. Jonte Cook is going to wear number 1 for Texas this year.
Yeah, and oh, by the way, they've got Colin Simmons listed at 6'3", 234. See, I just start, and he's wearing Derek Johnson's number 11, which I like.
I noticed it, yeah.
I feel like that finally, that feels like there's someone taking the 11 on the defensive side of the ball and maybe going the Derek Johnson way. So we'll get into the roster stuff. We've got a good show planned for you throughout the day. We were going to start a little bit with the War Room today, Chad, over at orangebloods.com. In fact, if you want to put that QR code up there, I might let people know now's a good time to hop on in. And yeah, Patrick says Micah Parsons as well, number 11. That's right. It's a cool number. And Larry, don't worry about Anthony Hill. We will get to him. I promise. We're literally getting to him right now. We did our Texas Card House. Shout out to the Card House War Room this past, last night. And there were a number of notes to get into. There's one in there from a source of mine that's talking about all the pass rush options that the Longhorns has. And he kind of, Chad, I took this as kind of from the movie Tombstone, because he says in the movie, like, you tell him I'm bringing hell or hell's coming with me. I can't remember exactly what it was, but
I'm coming and hell's coming with me, I think was the reference.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talked about was there was a quote from a source of mine talking about all the pass rushers. I loved this analogy, although I could understand if someone thinks it might be inappropriate in the event that any of you have ever known anybody burned to death. It says when you're bringing hell against opposing offenses, you want flames coming from all directions to cut off the emergency exits. We got a lot of flames all of a sudden. Well, they do. There's fires everywhere. I just mentioned Colin Simmons. We'll get into the flames in a little bit. The thing that stood out to you was another note that I had in the War Room that related to a different piece of the defense, and it was a completely different source than the previous one that I took a note from, where he's talking about Anthony Hill. We just had the question in the chat. Where'd it go? Where it is? There it is, Larry. What's up with Anthony Hill? I think he meant just from a roster standpoint, and quite honestly, if I'm not mistaken, he's the first guy on the roster because he's number 0.
Yes. And it could also be that we titled the show Anthony Hill Update. So maybe he just wants to know, hey, what's going on with Anthony Hill. Yeah.
True that.
Could be that.
Forgot about that.
Because, Catch, some people hear the word update a little differently than others. Sometimes it makes them
a little nervous. Give him an Anthony Hill update.
Oh, yeah. And it's a good one. It's a good one.
Technically, if you want a different Anthony Hill, 6'3", 243.
Whew.
Have some of that with your linebacker with the jersey number 0.
Yeah, that's got to be fun.
It's a big 0.
Yeah.
It's not like the 0 that DeAndre Moore will wear at 6'1", 195.
A little different.
when I bet now they don't have to dig through like a laundry bag to find their jersey number. Like that's what they did back in the 90s and at the high school level. Here they lay it out nice and pretty. But if you see it from the front, you can tell which one's Anthony Hill's and which one's DeAndre Moore. DeAndre Moore's got the skinny 0.
Yes, exactly.
Anthony Hill's got the fuller size, if you will. In the update that I did on the War Room last night, and by the way, yes, go over to Orange Bloods. I had a source mention that the hire of Johnny Nansen from Steve Sarkisian, look, those guys got a long history together. So it wasn't the only thing that was behind that hire, but I had a source tell me that one of the reasons why Johnny Nansen was so attractive to Sark is because Nansen's a guy that's very aggressive with his linebackers historically. He attacks with them, and that Steve Sarkisian looks at Anthony Hill and feels like he's a guy they've got to get every last ounce of ability out of. And the quote that this source gave me that I put in the War Room last night, and by the way, again, go over to Orange Bloods, check it out. You can read the whole thing. I'm just telling you a couple of notes from my section. There's notes and notes and notes. It's a big old full article. The quote was, "He might be our best player on the team. If he's not leading the defense in nearly every major statistical category, we failed. He's Nansen's number one weapon." Nansen and Pete's goal this offseason is to figure out the best ways to maximize the 2 seasons we have left with him. There's no one else on the team quite like him. End quote.
Man. Just, yeah, it jumped out to me, Catch, for a lot of reasons, but the idea that of all the guys on this team, that's the one that's really jumping out. But then when you connected it to Nansen, that's a detail I'd forgotten about. We talked about this. You're getting a DC, a successful DC, to come be your linebackers coach. And if you want to make the analogy to, I guess the 3 or 4 hitter in a baseball lineup that maybe unlocks all of it, or it's the point guard on a basketball team, or you could tell me who it is on a particular soccer team or whatever. But you get this feeling reading something like that whatever's about to happen with this Texas defense in 2024, the final key that turns to fire all the missiles might be 0. It might be Anthony Hill and the way they use him.
Well, and a year ago, the answer to this question probably was Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat. It changes from year to year, sport to sport, team to team. They lose Jalen Ford. They lose the 2 big interior defensive tackles. The guts of this Texas defense have been ripped out and need to be replaced. We always talk in baseball, it's catcher, pitcher, middle infield, center field. You got to be tough up the middle. And it's the same with a football team. And now the one real piece that Texas has, and I think it feels like they know they can depend on, not that they feel like you can depend on, because Alfred Collins feels like a guy that you feel like you can depend on. You think you've got an answer to the question, but you don't know. I think by the end of last season, they know what they have in Anthony Hill, that he was a 5-star linebacker prospect. He was the most important defensive recruit in last year's recruiting class. By the end of the year, from a productivity standpoint, he was up there with Jalen Ford, quite frankly, as from an activity standpoint at the linebacker position, making a lot of plays all over the place. We know that he's got some spectacular playmaking ability inside of him. I think starting now in the spring and how they start to use him, because I do think that was a big part of the Nansen hire. Mm-hmm. I expect Anthony Hill, and look, Anthony Hill's not Jalen Ford. They're going to be used probably in the same position, but what they're asked to do may end up looking quite different. A lot of times, Jalen Ford was at his best running backwards. So good in pass coverage, such a playmaker, going back to 2 seasons ago when it felt like he had a streak of about 19 consecutive games with an interception on the ledger. Wasn't quite that a year ago, but I don't think they feel like they can put Anthony Hill in the Jalen Ford box and expect the exact same thing, nor should they want to, because Hill's probably a more talented player just from an athletic, raw ability standpoint. He's got different strengths. Part of this spring going into August will be identifying how this defense can use the best of those strengths. And they feel like it's really, really important, because if they're ranking the most important players on that defense right now, Anthony Hill's probably number one.
Well, and Catch, I think the thing I keep thinking of, and I'm kind of combining those big notes that you had in the war room here, but when they're to go to the flame analogy, when the names that are mentioned are Burke and Simmons and Moore, and then the importance of Anthony Hill comes up, to me, it's about combo stuff. And we've kind of talked about this. I love the idea of a Burke, but you've also got maybe it's Hill on that side, and it's a double kind of attack. So if you want to go with the flame analogy, it's a first-degree burn followed by a second-degree burn, or it's the big burn and it's the backdraft, or it's the burn of the flame and then it's smoke inhalation. However you want to look at that, I love the idea of combo stuff where Anthony Hill is part of the combo, and one of those other weapons is the other part of it. And that offensive lineman and offensive line coach on the other side are thinking, well, holy hell, how are we supposed to stop this?
Yeah, it's a different kind of way of playing defense, I think, this year for Texas. They've suddenly got, the quote in the article, suddenly we've got a lot of flames. Suddenly they do. Suddenly Trey Moore, who, by the way, one of the things I made sure to look up was listed at 6'3", 241. Colin Simmons, as I mentioned, 6'3", 234.
Man.
Anthony Hill, 6'3", 243. Your linebacker's bigger than your two new ends.
Right.
But there's a profile of player / athlete. They're all very similar. They're the same height, and all three of those guys are within 5 to 7 pounds of each other on any given day.
And again, that was Simmons, Moore, Hill?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So Simmons, the smallest at 234. Moore comes in at 241. Hill comes in at 243, all 6'3". But then you've also got Ethan Burke. You've got, who I think at this point, a guy that's become a bit of an underrated player, even as a pass rusher, in Barron Sorrell. He did not have a great year getting guys on the ground, but his successful pass rush rate in terms of creating havoc and pressure was pretty high. He was a guy that had, I think he led the Big 12 in pressures. He just didn't lead the Big 12 in getting guys on the ground. So you might look at him and say he's our 4th or 5th best pass rusher. And he actually was one of the best pass rushers in the Big 12 a year ago, at least when it comes to pressures. Now you've added the nation's leading sack getter. Now you've added the nation's #1 edge rush prospect. You've got Ethan Burke, who continues to develop. And then you do have guys like Javon Tapp and other players at that position that they want to play. The bar is being raised. To get on the field, you're going to have to be at a certain level. I think one of the things that will become apparent this spring for the players is, what is that level actually? How good is Trey Moore? How good is Colin Simmons? Are they so good that a guy like Barron Sorrell on pass rushing downs understands, well, they're bringing in more on my side, even though he's not necessarily the profile of who I am, but on obvious pass rushing downs, we're trying to get these racers on the field, and I totally get it because I see it every day in practice. None of the guys on the team have seen these guys. They've seen them work out. There have been rave reviews for Trey Moore, rave reviews for Colin Simmons, quite frankly, rave reviews for Anthony Hill, although at a different position. But now we start to see it with these guys in a couple of weeks when they hit the field. And it's a lot more speed, playmaking, athleticism, I think, on this year's defense that will lead the way versus, I don't know that we ever felt like we were seeing crazy amounts of athleticism like cheetahs and jaguars. it was those two big rhinos in the middle were the thing that you noticed every single week. Ford didn't necessarily have the big plays a year ago that he had 2 years ago. You're waiting for Sorrell to take the last step. Ethan Burke, inconsistently very good. There were times, think back to that Alabama game where you're like, man, this guy, he's an impact player tonight. And then a month would go by and you didn't quite see that again. He still finishes with a really good second season last year, leading the team in sacks. He's another guy everybody thinks is taking steps forward. So I do think like what the MO of this defense, I think is going to be quite different next year. And I think it could be a lot more fun. Who knows whether or not it completely translates to significantly better. But you would think it would. If you would think that with a better pass rush comes a better secondary play, and better secondary play helps a pass rush that oftentimes just needs, a quarter of a second, a half of a second.
No.
I'm looking forward in a couple of what it looks like.
Yeah, it's going to be good to see there. I don't know if that was you or me that had a little bit of a hiccup there. I think
Did you see that? Yeah, I don't know what it is.
I think that might have been a little bit of you, but I think you've corrected yourself. We got some good chats coming in. Catch. What if the answer to this one is yes? Vic says, is Burke an all SEC caliber player?
I don't think he was last season. I don't know that I would even describe him as an all Big 12 player a year ago. The question is, can he be that?
Right. The projection, though, I think he can.
Yeah, look, he's getting first-round level projections from some draft guys already. So, yeah, no, he's got that kind of upside. Does he hit it this season? I think that quite literally is $1 million question, because if he does, this might be your last year with Ethan Burke before he heads off to the NFL. I mean, that's the level of ability that we're talking about. That could even be in the discussion. And to be fair, we had the same conversation with Baron Sorrell a year ago. I mean, Baron was doing shows with myself and Anwar Richardson where not Baron, but his dad Barry was talking about his son, and that, if he hits 10 sacks, hard to get your stock up much higher than that. I think any of these guys on that defensive line to be an all SEC player are probably going to need to produce at that level. Be a hell of a nice thing at the end of the year if Burke's sitting close or at double digits in sacks. The answer to your question will be then yes, and then the word yes will probably be the answer to several other questions involving Ethan Burke.
All right, Catch, double check the roster for me. You said you're looking at heights and weights. Our man Cody Clear says Savion 5'11", 240.
Hold on, let me look at that. I mean, I have no reason to believe that he would be disingenuous about listing the weight of 5'10", 240.
5'10", 240. And how about this one? Uncle Mickey says he saw Blackshire at 6'2", 261.
See, this is the fun stuff. I haven't had a chance to. Yeah, that's accurate.
Okay.
6'2". He's bigger than all of those other players we just talked about, plus an infant.
Damn. By the way, here's some stuff. This is just some of the things that were jumping out to me on the roster jersey wise. We mentioned Jonte Cook at 1. Golden's going to wear 2, which I think is what he wore at Houston. Wingo 5. Ryan Wingo fans, he'll wear 5. Other side, Kobe Black 6, in case he gets some impactful time. Isaiah Bond 7. And he wore a double digit at Bama, I think, right? He was like a 17 or something like that. So 14, 17, yeah. Bond will wear 7. Black's wearing 8. That's an interesting number for.
No, you were right, Chad. 17.
Said was 17, right? Okay. Black wearing 8, Catch. I always like that. I like when the tight ends go a little freakier. Sanders rocked the 0. Now you got Black coming in at 8. So it's not going to look like a typical tight end.
All guys that wear single digits look faster.
I know they do. They absolutely do. You mentioned Colin Simmons with 11. Makuba going with lucky 13. Blackshire 14. Filsamy will wear 21. And Trey Moore off the edge will try to make 31 look like a badass number. You don't see that off an edge rusher very often. 31 for Trey Moore.
Can I give you the update that everybody is waiting on?
Yes.
Not Arch Manning. No.
He's still 16?
Nothing's changed.
Okay.
But Bert Auburn, 6 foot 183, still wearing 45. I know everybody out there was wondering.
6 foot 183. What's that? 6'2¼ with the hair?
6'5". He's got that Charles Barkley listed, 6'6" when he's really 6'3". Arch, this one actually stood out to me. So Arch is 6'4", 220. And I think back to the picture of the quarterbacks that Malik Murphy posted last summer, Chad, where all of the guys are flexing. And Arch looks like a guy that's been in the weight room, right? 6'4", 220. True freshman quarterback Trey Owens, 6'5", 236.
Holy moly. Okay.
He's bigger than the defensive ends.
Damn. Owens, go ahead.
Owens, careful. They will move you to linebacker or end, or just letting you know, man. You get a little bit bigger. 6'5", 236. That's Roethlisberger-esque.
Yeah, you hope at some point in October somebody's not thinking, can we see if Owens can set an edge? Is there any way that hopefully that will not be necessary?
Adam Dunn. That's who that is.
Yeah, that's an interesting comp. Yeah. That's a big old slugger right there.
Very Adam Dunn-ish when Adam Dunn. I think Adam actually would have been more like 230 than 236. Man. So that one stood out almost as much. Again, we know that Arch, after some time in the weight room last year, was really starting to fill out. Do I sound gay if I say that I want to see Trey Owens shirtless?
No, not if you put it in the right context.
I mean, I don't care if I do or not. I'm just saying.
That's no.
I don't know that I've ever said that out loud about anybody. I don't think I've. Well, that's not true. I say that.
Come on. Yes, about anybody?
No, I corrected myself before the words. There's no period at the end of that sentence.
Okay, fair enough.
Let me amend it, comma, but almost everybody.
Right.
No, I'm, again, Trey Owens at 6'5", 236. I'm just curious, what does that look like in 4 years? He's a big old boy. Just there's no way to get around that. I'll move on.
Yeah. All right. So I tell you what, we will move on in House Divided from guys with their shirt off to, I guarantee you the guy I'm about to show has a shirt on. And if you reach out to him, he will have a shirt on. We can guarantee that, Catch, about Andy and My Perfect Franchise. Tell him about Andy and what he can do for them with a shirt on.
This is you in your locker room stories. Ben, don't get me started there. And honestly, if we're talking about Andy, he's more of the long sleeve button-up shirt variety. If we're talking about shirts, either staying on or coming off. Look, the bottom line is we've all had this thought, and some of us are able to do it. Look, I'm able to run my own thing and be my own boss. It's awesome. It's been since 2000, spring of 2000, since I had a boss. If you've got that idea, if you have that dream, if that's the way you'd like your life to be, Andy can make that happen. He can help you with a plan, not just the dream, but the plan that makes the dream come true. Email him, Andy at myperfectfranchise.net, or text or call the number below, 404-973-9901. Say, Andy, what's up? I think I might want to have a conversation. And let it start from there. Simple as that. myperfectfranchise.net. Start living that dream.
There it is. And some of us just live the dream of having the most handsome boss on the face of the earth. One of our chatters says, Chad, who's that new guy on the left? Welcome back, Catch. Absolutely. There he is right there.
Just so you guys know, wait till a week and a half from now. You won't even remember that he existed because he's going away.
Well, don't say it like that. That's just,
Who you are.
I mean,
like a vacation. You're going someplace.
I am. You've been nice enough to, give me something I've never really had, which is spring break off. I think I was a college student last time I had spring break off. It's crazy.
Yeah. Believe me, in the last couple of days, I've wondered, Jeff, why didn't you give yourself spring break off?
I thought
maybe it occurred to me. It was like, you could have done that too. You could have just thought of it, but no, I didn't. Yes.
Yes. So a big welcome back to Catch. Thank you, Mark. We do. We join you in welcome. Yes, it is good to be back. It is good to see you and talk to you and go through all these great chats. Remember, if you throw the super chat at us, that will go to the top of the list. And that means if Jeff Ketchum hadn't been around for a couple days, that means he has not seen your chats. He hasn't seen a super chat in a while. So it wouldn't hurt. Remind him what a super chat looks like. Like, subscribe, get your notifications. Remind him what all that looks like. Hell, he hadn't seen Lisa and the Rabbit in a little while. Let's remind Ketch of what's at Specs. He may have forgotten. Here we go.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Yeah, it is. Got stocked up the other day at Specs. Got some good stuff. All right. Thanks to everybody who's in the Specs chat. We are talking War Room notes from last night. Remember, orangebloods.com brings you that War Room on Thursday nights. Thursday night. All the details, all the notes, all the stuff. We'll let you see that QR code here. Get yourself or somebody that you know that's a Longhorn freak, get them into orangebloods.com. And Thursday nights will always be good for you. It's like the old days when all the TV shows were coming on, except it's the War Room and everybody's got their notes. So we started with some Anthony Hill talk, the flames on the defensive side, the flames that will be shooting at offenses throughout the season. A lot of confidence on that side. Catch, what else out of the War Room is jumping to your mind right now?
Can I interrupt that for just a moment?
Well, sure.
Pop quiz.
As you said, you're the boss. You can do whatever you want.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Okay.
Who do you think is the largest human being on the Texas roster? Because I was scrolling down and I made that observation, and I did the old Sheriff Buford T. Justice. Woof. Woof.
Okay, this is largest by weight on the entire team, you're saying?
As it turns out, I think there's no taller nor like he's the largest, period.
Okay. Sadir Mitchell?
Wrong. I think that's the answer that everybody, it's what I would have given, Chad.
Okay.
I would have guessed. They list Sadir Mitchell at 6'6", 372.
Damn. Okay, who's
but
bigger than
there's
that?
One above him.
Who is it?
Checking in at 6'7", 372.
Damn.
So it's Ty, but he's a little taller.
Okay.
Connor Stroh, number 79.
That's a big boy.
He's a big boy.
That's a large human, Catch, and that is a offensive lineman.
Yes,
right. He's an O lineman,
redshirt freshman from Frisco. Big old redhead.
That's a big dude.
He could have been the double for the redhead in Game of Thrones. What was that guy's name?
Ooh,
the wildling.
The wildling guy. Yes, with the beard and everything.
Right. Thorm.
Yeah.
Like somebody will say it. Put in the chat. Chad for Chad and I. Chat and Chad are too close. Just throwing that out there. By the way, we have a super chat for $2.
Mm-hmm.
Mark says, other than Hill, what UT player could be SEC Defensive Player of the Year? Trey Moore?
Yeah, that's the first one that popped in my head. I think he's the player Texas fans are going to appreciate maybe more than anybody else on defense. I think he'll be the guy that of all the ones you're going to be glad you got, I think that might be number one.
I mean, I'm trying to think of from a statistical standpoint who could pop a number that would put him on that. It's hard for me to think that anybody else is a double-digit sack guy. I don't know if he is either. He has been, though, multiple occasions at UTSA. So maybe.
There's another thing, Catch, that, as we get into this SEC thing, and we are officially 115 days away for Texas and Oklahoma, but there's a lot about the SEC that gets overblown. I mean, it just means more. It's for everything, the good, the bad, whatever. And sometimes we get a little crazy about, oh my God, he was named SEC, whatever. Remember that Michael Sam was like defensive player of the year, wasn't he, in the SEC? And then could not find his place in the NFL. So you do have those moments, but that's the first guy I would think. This dude led the country in sacks last year. And I'm going to trust that it will translate from that level to the level he's going to here. I think Trey Moore is going to be a noticeable guy in the SEC.
I mean, that's why they took him.
Yeah.
If they didn't think he was going to be that, they wouldn't have needed him. They didn't need a good player to come in. They got good players. They got guys that would be good players that are third and fourth string. They've got, Colton Vasek is a redshirt freshman who I thought was a borderline 5-star last year as a recruit. He's not able to get on the field right now, in part because it's Ethan Burke, it's Trey Moore, it's Barron Sorrell, it's Colin Simmons. That guy anywhere else in the country would be on a show like this, a player that's number one amongst getting questions asked about. When are we going to see Colton Vasek? They're deep enough at that position that when Trey Moore becomes available, if they think he's just pretty good or even very good, I don't think they need to bother themselves. They went out and got him and made him a priority in the portal because they believed he was a significant upgrade over what they already had. And statistically, performance-wise, the past couple of years, he has been. No doubt about it. Now it's about, can he applicate it at this level? If he can, the NFL scouts are going to be all over him.
Yeah. And then again, I think this, the thing that jumped out to me first about the War Room, and it's right towards the top when you check out the War Room, but the idea that a combo of Burke, Simmons, and Moore are getting attention as, man, there's some excitement around those three dudes. And a source is telling you that if Anthony Hill is not the biggest deal on this team, somebody failed. That a lot of folks think he's the best player, dude for dude, on this football team. Like, combine those two ideas. That's crazy.
I mean, you're already putting him on a level of Kelvin Banks first and foremost. If someone says,
yeah,
he might be the best player on the team, well, at this point, I don't think that's Quinn Ewers yet. At this point, for me, that's probably Kelvin Banks. So to put him on that type of a level, again, speaks to just how highly he's thought of behind the scenes in the program. And there's a lot to be excited about on this Texas defense. There's a lot of exciting pieces, how it comes together. The inside questions at D tackle are kind of what the questions at defensive end were a year ago. Mm-hmm. Coming into it was, do they have guys that can get to the quarterback? Can they be good enough that, you can win with those guys and let other players make plays? This year, it's just kind of reversed. This year, I think you're looking at the interior of the defensive line and you're saying, can Alfred Collins, can Vernon Broughton, can players that they're bringing in be good enough that that's not a weakness? That it's not maybe the biggest strength of the team, but it's also not the thing that gets you beat. While a year ago, interior, that was the thing that was winning games. This year, it's going to have to be the playmaking off the edge, the playmaking in the middle of that defense with Anthony Hill. Those are a year ago, we would have said, certainly during the season, if anything happened to Murphy or Sweat, it changes the team. So this year, they may have enough depth, Chad, at defensive end that they could lose a guy to an injury and it not crush you. Anthony Hill's definitely in the top 5 guys on the team that can't get hurt because there ain't nobody else like him.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So let me ask you this, Catch. Let's assume that your sourcing is correct. And let's say right now, Anthony Hill is the best football player on this team. When's the last time you would say the best player, no doubt, on the Texas football team was a defensive player? And when was the last time you'd say it was a linebacker, if that was true?
Oh, Malik Jefferson was pretty good in 2017. He was a Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year.
Mm-hmm.
So he would have needed to be in that discussion. You know, I instinctively, Jordan Hicks is pretty good in 2014 on a really bad football team.
Mm-hmm.
That team was not good, but there wasn't anybody on offense that you would have said was the best player on the team. So maybe John Harris, but I don't think John Harris was as good as Jordan Hicks was in Hicks's last year, that first year under Charlie. But instinctively, the answer to that question is Derek Johnson.
Yeah, right. The guy that Colin Simmons is taking the old number of. It's a hell of a sign based on what you just said. When you're talking about a team again that back in the day that wasn't as good, the one that you're talking about Hicks being on. Think about Catch. Not top out on talent. Let's assume the guys that you think are going to be good or really good are good or really good. The idea that Anthony Hill's better than all those guys. He's better than whatever Kelvin Banks is going to be this year. He's better than whatever the running backs are going to be. He's better than all these receivers we've been talking about, all of them. He's better than Jonte Cook. Jonte Cook has a breakout year, goes crazy, but at the end we'll all go, oh, no, Anthony Hill's the best player on this team. And it's a no doubt situation. That's going to be a wild season to watch. If I'm a Texas fan, you know me, Catch. I was raised defensive. I was raised on the defensive side of the ball, so I'd be all for that if I'm a Texas fan.
You know, there's a part of me that can't help but think. I don't mean to say this because this show's called House Divided, and you're on the other side of the house. But it's hard not to think of the A&M Texas recruiting battle. And how at once upon a time, Anthony Hill looked like he was going to end up an Aggie. Mm-hmm. And people look back like, you know, it's kind of funny because how did Texas get Malik Jefferson? A&M, Kevin Sumlin kind of vomited all over his shirt at the end of that recruitment when it looked like Malik Jefferson was going to be an Aggie. He wanted to be an Aggie. And Kevin Sumlin wouldn't give him an answer on some very basic questions like, hey, man, who's going to be my coach? Can you at least give me a hint? You think about Anthony Hill. Why did he commit to Texas A&M? I think NIL probably helped, but both of those schools have NIL. Anthony Hill made that decision because he wanted to. He wanted to be an Aggie for a while. And it wasn't, oh, they're playing Jedi mind tricks. NIL certainly didn't hurt. And it was something that Texas definitely had to come up with if they were going to, I think, pull that coup off. I think it's interesting, though, that had A&M not had the season that they had in, 2022, that kid could be in maroon right now. And how different is A&M feeling about themselves this offseason if they know that they can replace Cooper with Hill and that, like, hey, defense is going to be rocking. And if you're Texas, if you don't have this kid, I think the defensive structure looks entirely different. I think there's probably some portal additions. Like, I don't think they could just lean on, we took 4 or 5 linebackers in recruiting a couple of years ago, and now they all have to grow up. I don't think they didn't lean on that. And you could have said that about the wide receiver position to some degree. Well, we've got Jonte Cook. We've got DeAndre Moore. We've got Ryan Niblett. We've got a bunch of young kids coming in. We'll just let it fly. The whole linebacker position is like secured by the presence of Anthony Hill. And if he's not there, and it's like, well, now David Benda and Blackshire and the rest of these freshmen really have to be the forefront of that position, changes everything. And that kid could have been an Aggie real easily. It took A&M almost 10 years later kind of throwing up all over themselves at the absolute wrong time. Because if this had been 1 year earlier, Jimbo still looks like he's got that A&M program ascending with the recruiting and everything else. That kid probably ends up being an Aggie. Like, these incredibly crucial pieces of the puzzle sometimes are decided by timing and luck and a ball bouncing your way at the right time. And, you know, Hill is one of those guys that it definitely dawns on me that, boy, that could completely have gone the other way. And had it gone that way, just that one piece of this year's puzzle, how different does the defense look? Significantly. I think Anthony Hill's that important. Chad James says for $4.99 in the super chat, more likely chances Anthony Hill ends up being DJ or Hicks. Probably Hicks. I mean, I can't throw Derek. I can't do that. That's it. There are a couple of players in the history of this program that I can't do player comparisons with. I just can't.
You can't say somebody's going to be that guy.
I can't say Vince.
Yeah.
I can't say Ricky. And look, I didn't see Earl. So Earl would probably be in that category, but I saw Ricky.
Yeah. What if they say he's going to be Casey Hampton? What do you do then? Do you buy that one? Do you allow it? Because I'm one from the outside perspective. I usually don't allow that. I'm like, come on, man. Casey Hampton's different.
The thing is, I would probably say in that circumstance is that you do know how good Casey Hampton was, right?
Exactly.
That he led the team in tackles
from
the
there.
nose guard position.
Yeah.
2 years in a row. Like,
yeah.
The stats are gaudy. I don't even need to know the NFL stuff where Steelers fans and people on that franchise will tell you that he was a foundational, critical piece of what they did, even if he wasn't a household name. He's in there. Derek Johnson is on, and there. If we're talking about a top five, it's probably Vince, Ricky, and DJ are in my top three.
Yeah.
So is he more likely to end up being Derek Johnson or Jordan Hicks? Jordan Hicks still playing football, if I'm not. I mean, he's a good NFL football player. So I'll say Hicks, because I would say this, James. If I told you you were getting 2014 version Jordan Hicks this year, you'd take that, right? Because that means Anthony Hill's first team all SEC going into next season. Jordan Hicks is really, really good. I just can't say Derek Johnson. Forgive me. Phil says for $5, Corey Redding compared to Simmons and Jackson as potential edge rushers. You know, the thing is, who's Jackson, by the way?
I was just about to ask you, who's Jackson? They meant somebody else there? Simmons?
Jackson Jeffcoat?
Jackson. Maybe? That's a weird thing to do, though, to put the two older players on the outside. That's a little.
What are you saying? Redding
compared to Simmons and Jackson.
Phil, clarify for us, just so that we know.
Yes, Phil, please help out there.
Corey Redding, I can't compare Colin Simmons to Corey Redding. They're completely different players. And Corey Redding was a big old, Corey Redding was just, felt like he was a man-child the moment that he walked in, more of a strong side guy. Oh, Landon Jackson.
Oh.
I definitely needed you to put that up. So Corey Redding compared, it's weird. We don't usually get questions where we are comparing, like you said, older players. It's usually comparing younger players to older players. You've completely flipped this around, and you're having us comparing Corey Redding to Lance Jackson, who's committed to Texas, right?
So this is, for those that don't know, Landon Jackson's a future. This is a future.
Yes, class of 2025.
He's a recruit, right?
Redding and Simmons are both five-star guys. I don't quite have Jackson there. Corey Redding, I would have rated above Colin Simmons. I think for me, Corey Redding was like a 6-star and Colin Simmons was a 5-star. So I think I would have Redding on it. I would have it Redding on one tier, Simmons just below him, and then Lance Jackson below both of them.
All right. Fair enough. Thank you for the super chat, Phil. We appreciate it. And there we go. It is House Divided on this Friday. Before we go any further, let me tell you a little bit about AV consultations. I've started talking to you about them, and this is the time of year to start thinking about it. Do you want that badass TV setup that you've always been dreaming of? The man cave you've always wanted, that cool TV and the right seats and the right furniture and all that. Do me a favor. Next week, when I'm off, Ketch is going to be playing that video we've showed you of AV consultations. Tom's going to tell you about what they do, but you're going to see all those images, cool images of all the ways you can set stuff up. They've got all kinds of options for you, like the wacky idea I hadn't thought of, old school video games. If you are like me and Ketch and you're that right age and, I don't know, the combo Miss Pac-Man Galaga machine, that would make the perfect addition to your man cave. They can do that kind of stuff for you. Make sure to let them take care of every detail. They can get better deals than you can on all the stuff. The TV, don't go one place for TV, one place for speakers. Now you got to worry about the cords. Did I get the connector right? How do I mount it? They're going to do all that stuff for you at AV Consultations. 255-8678. They've been around since 1988, doing an incredible job at all this stuff. So get your dreams set and then give them a call. 255-8678, or you can go to avconsultations.com. All right. In terms of the, we just had the super chat about defensive line stuff. We're talking Anthony Hill today, and some of the other war room stuff. We've kind of been on the defensive line for a while. Is there anything else, Ketch, that really is jumping out to you today, or is this going to be pretty much a defensive focused show today?
The other thing that stood out to me the most about the war room was a note that Anwar had about Brandon Baker, and that he's going to start out the year as third string right tackle. It made me think of the way I think that's, for me, that's purely optics. That my expectations that by the time we get to August, that Brandon Baker's position potentially on what side of the line he's playing and where on the depth chart he is could look quite different. He's not going to start, but I think he's got a chance to be second team left tackle. And I think he is the starting left tackle in 2025 after Kelvin Banks goes pro, assuming that everything's okay with Kelvin Banks this season and there's no reason for him to come back next year. You know, think about like Arch Manning in a year ago with Malik Murphy, in the moment that if there was ever a moment where Arch on the depth chart was just obviously ahead of Malik was going to transfer. I think there's a little bit of that with Brandon Baker, and that I might and others might. He's the Colin Simmons or the Anthony Hill of the offensive line. Like from a prospect standpoint, that's who he is. But if you start him at camp day one on the second team ahead of players who are otherwise ahead of him now, you're basically telling those guys transfer now.
Right.
This kid hasn't even played a down, but we're starting him in camp ahead of you on the depth chart. So I think now I'm going to be real fascinated to see how quickly that progression takes place. When does he start getting some time at left tackle? I thought that was interesting. I wasn't quite prepared to see third team right tackle, but it does make sense because I think it tells you that the coaches want to keep these players that they have, that they need some guys to transfer before the start of the season. That will have to happen, but it doesn't appear that any of those players they want coming from the tackle position at this point. So I think they're protecting their assets. That was probably the thing that stood out to me the most.
Because as you're looking forward with things, you're seeing Brandon Baker as a guy. Maybe he's not the absolute one guy, but he's one of the guys that you're going to look at as that future left tackle if he continues to develop.
Now, all of these guys that are 5 stars or high 4 stars, They're not going anywhere to be sitting the bench on year 2. You know, look at Jonte Cook a year ago. Mm-hmm. He had to kind of swallow his pride a little bit. He was getting some playing time, but not what he expected. But hey, you're behind Adonai Mitchell. You're behind Xavier Worthy. It kind of is what it is. But if he was going into this offseason thinking he wasn't going to be a starter, Chad, what do you think Jonte Cook would do? Seriously. It's a serious question.
He would transfer.
Yes.
No doubt.
Every single guy that they've recruited at that level has in their head that they're going pro after 3 years. They all think it. Mm-hmm. So the idea that going into year 2, you're not, whoa, my plan is off. Mm-hmm. That's what guys are thinking. My plan is off schedule. And it's one of the reasons why the Arch Manning story is so fascinating, because Arch seems to be about the only quarterback in the country right now that not starting going into year 2 isn't a poison pill. Think about what happened at Oklahoma. There's a lot of people that think that Dylan Gabriel is a top 5 quarterback in college football this year. And they got rid of a guy that was the best player on the field in the Cotton Bowl against Texas last year, first team all Big 12. And they basically walked him to the door because they didn't want Jackson Arnold to transfer. And that's not been an issue at Texas, that Quinn Ewers is coming back and that Arch is, and it's too late to transfer and go to an SEC school. So like he's here. It's a really unique situation. But Texas fans need to know part of big time recruiting is these big time dudes expect to be on the field. So every single guy with a high 4-star ranking or above, you know, I think, you keep an eye on them in year 1, and some of them will absolutely play. We saw it a year ago. Almost all of their super blue chips got on the field as true freshmen. Even if they were backups, they played a lot. Malik Muhammad, Derek Williams, those guys by the end of the year were playing more than they were sitting. Brandon Baker is exactly that kind of a prospect. And that he's at the offensive line doesn't change anything. Kelvin Banks, the last 2 true super blue chip prospects that Texas signed on the offensive line, Kelvin Banks starts in year 1, game 1, play 1, day 1. And DJ Campbell ends up being a starter last year. So he's a game 1 starter year 2. And he might have even been a game 1 starter year 1, except he wasn't an early enroller. So he came in during the summer. His first set of practices were in August. That's probably the only reason why he also wasn't a day 1 starter. Baker's not going to be a day 1 starter this year. They've got Kelvin Banks. It'd be really hard for me to think that he would take Cam Williams' job, and that, you know, I guess that right tackle job still has to be won and not just given to somebody. But yeah, I think we're going to see that kid on the field sooner rather than later.
Catch, I got a question for you here off of chat in just a second. But before that, I have got the 3 words that have been in my head ever since the weather has been what it's been, and that's Hays City Store. It's always a good time to get out there. But man, when the weather does this, when you get those badass March days, it just feels so perfect. Double check your weather and then head on out to Driftwood. FM 150 in Driftwood. It's just a great relax. It's a great reset. You get out of the city. If you're living like in the city and you're living in the grind and you hate the traffic, just one of the best places that I get to go, hang out, have some great food. The chicken fried steak. The burgers are awesome. I love the bacon jam burger. Their blue cheeseburger is an award winner. It's one people love. Their pizzas are incredible. My kid and a friend of ours, they swear by the pizzas. There's all kinds of different stuff. The famous enchiladas are incredible. So all of that is waiting on you, including the 40 beers on tap. The frozen margarita flights, if you like. If you're into bourbon, if you're into vodka, whatever you love, Hays City Store does an incredible job. They're going to make you feel comfortable. You're just going to love it. So get on out there. There's your QR code if you want to start looking at menu items and make your plan. Driftwood, Texas is waiting on you with Hays City Store. So, Catch, somebody sent this in the chat. A couple people have mentioned it in the chat. I just want to get your theory here. Why do they want Savion Red at 240 if that's indeed where he is? What's the idea?
Fullback?
Yeah, I mean, are we talking? Yeah, are we pushing more towards badass fullback, or are they thinking, well, he was a receiver? Are we now thinking like tight end?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look, I always feel like I sound like a Savion Red hater, and I don't mean to be, but he's not one of the best running backs on the team, and he's not one of the best receivers on the team. I don't know why we talk about him. Now, I think Savion Red's good enough that if he were to go down to a UTSA or a North Texas, or I say SMU now, they're in the ACC, but they would probably qualify as well. I think he'd be a really good player for them. The skill positions at Texas right now are bonkers. They really are. Take a look at that wide receiver position.
I know.
And look at the guys that can't get on the field because of who's ahead of them. What the hell was Savion Red? I don't know. I don't know what to tell you, Paxton. He's probably fifth string tailback right now. That if you think back to a year ago, he was behind Jonathan Brooks, he was behind CJ Baxter, he was behind Jaden Blue. He's probably behind Keelan Robinson. He's the fifth option at running back. You look at it this year, everybody's back except for Brooks and Robinson, I guess. But I don't know what his role is. To me, Savion Red at Texas is a situational package player. So could he be your red zone quarterback? Maybe at 240, he's still the wild horse guy. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Could he grow into a H-back fullback? Maybe.
Right.
He's got versatile enough skills that I shouldn't completely, maybe he's got like a future poor man's Frank Wycheck kind of job in him where he's special teams and you're asking different things of him.
Can he do the stuff that Andrew Beck did? What kind of weight was Andrew Beck carrying at Texas?
Well, and that may be, Andrew Beck comes in as a linebacker, a big linebacker who then grows into that position. I don't know what to say about Savion Red.
Yeah, that's just an interesting number.
I don't think Savion Red is good enough to be a frontline player at Texas. I think he's good enough to be a really good player at a tier below.
Right.
Whatever whatever you think that tier looks like, I just know that to play running back or wide receiver at Texas right now, you have to be a future high-level NFL prospect. And I don't think of Savion Red that there's a thing that exists that I keep wondering, is that ever going to happen? Is that a future story that we have? Because I don't know where he plays. And I think he thinks he should play. I think he thinks he's good enough to play, and it's not happening.
Yeah.
I don't know that Savion Red is always going to be at Texas. I don't. But at 240, fullback / H-back, maybe that's the path. I don't know. I know if that was the case, though, this would be his third different position in 3 years that started at wide receiver. They move him to running back. It's not working out at running back. Now they're making him a potential kind of hybrid tight end fullback. It's not a horrible idea. I just have no idea how that works. And who are you taking off the field?
Right.
To put him on the field?
That may be the best question of all. By the way, he will still be rocking that 17. So keep an eye out for Savion Red. What does that 240 look like? And if they use him, how do they use him? It's a really interesting 240.
But he was like 225 as a true freshman. So it's not it's not bonkers to be
he was bigger.
How did that happen? Well, he ate his Wheaties. and working out with Torrey Becton, he put 15 pounds of muscle on. I don't, you know what? I don't know that that's good. You know, on one hand, maybe that makes him a stronger player that can play a full, maybe that's his pathway to playing in the NFL.
Yeah. Well, and the thing, Catch, might be whether it's Sark or Becton. I don't know if Becton ever answers questions, but if they would answer the question of, hey, do you guys like him at 240? Is there a plan for him at 240? Or would they tell you, no, he's got some work to do? You know, like if they're going to be honest with you about it, would they tell us, fellas, just wait till you see this idea. This Savion Red is going to turn your head. Or would they say, no, say, you know, he needs to shave a few. We'll see.
We have a super chat question for Shook Ones, and then we probably should go into buy or sell at that point, although it's quite lively in the Specs chat. We do love what we've got going on here in the live chat today. Shook One says, I know he had a back injury or something, but what's the latest with Colton Vasek? Full participant this spring. Also, who sees the field first, KJ Lacey or Trey Owens? I mean, Vasek's in year two, coming off of an injury. He needs to add size to his frame. Simple as that. I think the only thing that's happened to Vasek is that there's been an influx of talent at his position that wasn't all there before. And so now he's further down the totem pole, but he's still got to develop some. So I'm expecting full participant. As far as who sees the field first, KJ Lacey or Trey Owens?
It's a good
Probably
question.
Owens as a special teams, maybe a holder or something. I mean, the thing is, and maybe as even a backup. I mean, Trey Owens next year could be the backup to Arch Manning. It could also be KJ Lacey. You could make a case that KJ Lacey and Trey Owens become the Arch Manning and Malik Murphy from a year ago, although not quite apples to apples. I'm mystified by KJ Lacey in the sense, I don't know that I understand Texas for him. He's in Alabama. He knows that Arch Manning is on the roster. And I think most people feel like Arch Manning won't go pro after the 2025 season, his first year as a starter. So 2027 could be the first year that KJ Lacey or Trey Owens could hit the field as a starting quarterback at Texas. And that would mean KJ Lacey waited 3 seasons, essentially repeating what Arch just did or is in the process of doing. That's never happened before in the history of college football, and Texas is going to get lightning to strike twice, 2 times in a row. I'm watching the KJ Lacey thing happen, and I'm waiting for some school to really tell him, you do know the Manning kids there, right? Yeah. Like, what's the plan? And I wonder, I don't want anybody to get mad at me. I'm just saying the way my brain works, I can't help but to count years.
Yeah. Catch, you do realize.
I'm a troublemaker. I count.
Catch, you do realize if that happens, Steve Sarkisian will be touring the country in the offseason in like coaching clinics, doing speeches on how he pulled that off. It'll be
the Hall of Fame at that point.
He'll write a book called 6 Magic Years, and there'll be a picture of Manning and a picture of Lacey. How we made it stretch for 6 years. It's really simple.
Crazy to even think about. The ace up the sleeves that Sarkisian will always have is that if he ever needed a quarterback through the portal, if ever he did for any reason, guys would be jumping off of ships and moving cars to be the quarterback at Texas. And we saw what the quarterback market looked like this past year. It seems to be a position, I think, every year moving forward where you can anticipate a lot of movement. So I think the good thing about being Sark and not a defensive-minded head coach is that you're like Nick Foles.
I see. You almost got to the end of that one with a really salient, serious point. And then this little The little kid. There was a little kid in your brain.
What's wrong with that as a metaphor?
Great metaphor. No, great metaphor. Great metaphor. Absolutely.
Hey, his wife approves?
Yes, absolutely. 199 super chat. James, if you could have one in the 24 season, Ricky or DJ?
I'd take Ricky. I mean,
we're talking the absolute prime of that guy. Yeah, I think I'd do that and then sit back and figure out how Sark's going to get him 1,000 because we know that'll happen at that point.
Can you look? I don't know if you put Derek Johnson on that defense if Texas wins a national championship.
Oh my God!
But if you put Ricky Williams and surround him with Quinn Ewers and all of that other skill talent,
dude, if you go 4 wide sets with Ricky as the back, God help that defense. I don't know what you do.
The thing is, I watched most of Ricky Williams' entire career from the field working in television.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the amount of respect that I have for Ricky Williams is just a teardrop away from Vince Young. That's fair. He was as dominating of a football player that I don't even let guys like Bijan or Deontay Foreman or Jamal Charles, like those dudes, they don't get, who gets to sit at the table with Ricky? Earl,
yeah. Catch, I got so much respect for him. There's a game in the House Divided rivalry that I refer to as Ricky in the Rain, and A&M won the game. Like, that's how much respect I have for the guy and what he did. There's Ricky breaking the record the next year, but A&M got a win in a game. And when I think of the game, all I think about is, man, if Ricky doesn't get hurt, Texas probably wins that game.
Look, Ricky Williams was the thing that put them over the top in 95. They win that last game in College Station to win the Southwest Conference Championship. And you could have asked me that day, who would you rather have, Bryant Westbrook or Ricky Williams? I love Bryant Westbrook, and believe me, his fingerprints were all over that game.
Yes, they were.
He left DNA everywhere. But what Ricky did that day as a true freshman was like a harbinger of things to come. Yeah. If you're giving me 1998 version Ricky Williams,
oh my God,
I just don't know. Other than a quarterback, I don't know that there's anybody else that you could offer me. I mean, if you said Randy Moss Marshall, I still might take Ricky.
I know. The only one I was thinking of is catches. What if you could have let's make it a 10-year gap. What if you could have 1988 Barry Sanders or 98 Ricky?
At that point, you're probably taking Barry Sanders.
Right? That might be the only one I can think of.
But Barry in college might be the only guy that's at a different table than Ricky and Earl.
Yeah. No.
Pretty lonesome at the Barry Sanders Thanksgiving Day table.
That's a great question, James. Thank you for that. That is every bit worth your $199. Thank you so much. That was awesome. All right. Catch, you ready for a little buy or sell before we get out of here?
Let's do it. I'm going to let you go first. I had good intentions.
Uh-huh.
But then Texas released the roster.
Freaked
and
out.
I got halfway through with 15 minutes, Chad, until the show started.
Uh-huh.
I started to work on buy or sell questions inside the Restream stuff.
Right. Okay.
But then the roster got, and then I didn't even finish question. I started with question number 4.
Okay. All right. That's okay.
I didn't even finish it.
I'll see if I can make up for it. Let's start with Texas football in 2024. Catch, buy or sell number 1, Ryan Wingo, 12 plus catches.
Ooh, I'm going to go buy. It's 4 more than Jonte Cook had a year ago. I also wonder if Ryan Wingo sticks around for year 2, if he doesn't do more than that. Like, not all these 5-star guys in this current state of college football are just hanging around because it's the next year. So I'm going to say buy. I'm going to say they make a real effort to show future freshman wide receivers that the portal alone doesn't mean that we won't showcase the big badasses that come in.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier that Cook is taking Xavier Worthy's number 1. In the case of Wingo, he's taking Adonai Mitchell's number 5. Ryan Wingo will be wearing number 5 this year. All right, catch, buy or sell number 2. Ethan Burke, 8 plus sacks in 2024.
Sell.
Okay.
The math this feels like the Baron Sorrell question from last year. And in the end, it always seems like going under on sacks is the smart way to go. If you ask me to set a over and under for Burke sacks in 2024, I think I might set it at 7.5.
Okay.
So it's a close number, but I'm going to take the under.
Gotcha. And he was at 5.5 last year. If everybody doesn't remember, for Ethan Burke, he's once again wearing number 91 this year. Check out that new roster. All right, Catch, here we go to the NFL. Buy or sell number 3. You've heard the Dalton Schultz comments about the difference between playing in Houston and Dallas, and it didn't faze you a bit. You are numb to the circus.
So I didn't hear the Dalton Schultz comments about the difference between playing in Houston and Dallas. There's literally nothing Dalton Schultz could say that would faze me. So by all means,
fair enough.
Tell me what he said.
Okay, here, if you would like, here are the comments that stood out to me. He was on Pat McAfee's show and was talking about the difference in the two. He says, quote, "The focus is just football. Going back and telling some people about being around the Cowboys practice facility and game day, describing some of the interactions and stuff you see on a day-to-day basis, it surprises a lot of people. They're like, holy crap, that actually happens at a practice facility? You think it's normal, then you come to a place like this." Of course, talking about Houston. He says, "Dallas is literally a zoo, dude. There's people tapping on the glass, trying to get people's attention while they're doing power cleans or whatever. It's different. That's the brand they've built. That's what Jerry Jones likes. That's the way they run things, and there's nothing wrong with that. You don't realize how many eyeballs and how much that can maybe distract in the locker room just being in the facility until you go somewhere else. And you're like, holy crap, there's none of that." End quote. Right? I mean, I was with you. It's like, yeah, okay. But I will say, Catch, the imagery of Cowboys fans or whoever taking the tour of like the Star or the stadium and literally getting to watch the guys work out. It never would have occurred to me. That did not occur to me.
I just feel like the elephant in the room here is he plays for the Houston Texans now, and nobody cares about the Texans.
Well, I would disagree with that, considering the season they just had and where it looks like they may be headed.
Start hopping on the bandwagon now, but I live in this area. I see someone wearing a Texans jersey, and even though I live in the Houston area, I see someone wearing a Texans jersey, and I think to myself, how'd that happen? So nothing. I just think that he's gone from one extreme to the other. It's like playing at Real Madrid and then going to play for Austin FC. Yeah, shocker. Things are different. Duh. That dude played for the Cowboys. Like, I have to believe that by the end of week or month 1, he understood, oh, it's different around here. Nothing that he said was surprising. It's surprising that he felt like saying it should surprise anybody. It's the Cowboys. Right. They give tours for everything.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Also today,
and you know what? They're the Cowboys. People buy tickets for tours of everything.
Yeah. By the way, today I heard a stat I don't even want to look up. Stephen A. Smith said since the day the Texans were born, they have more playoff wins than the Cowboys. I don't even want to believe that's true if it is. All right, moving on before I cry. Buy or sell number 4, Catch. James Vanderbeek has a birthday today. In a high school playoff game, you'd rather have Johnny Moxon at quarterback than Bird from Wildcats.
It's a big sell.
Ooh.
I'm taking Bird from Wildcats is like the Odell James of the Chicago school system back in the mid-'80s. That was a super blue chip if there ever was one. James Vanderbeek was going to Howard. Where was he going? He was
Brown,
yes. He was just a guy going to Brown. Bird, if he could have been academically eligible, is the starting quarterback for Tom Osborne's Nebraska football team. And they're winning a national championship. He's Tommy Frazier he's Tommy Frazier with size. Give me Bird.
Sometimes I get the exact breakdown I was looking for. Well done. Volleyball clap. Very nice. Very nice. Happy birthday to James.
Bird's name Lavander?
Lavander, yes. Lavander Bird. I can't remember the last name, but yes. Williams. Lavander Bird Williams. Lavander
great
Williams.
name, too.
It really was. All right. Happy birthday to James Vanderbeek. And finally, Catch, let's go nerdy. Tomorrow is Rick Steiner's birthday. As a wrestling fan and a child of the 80s, you can tell me his awesome nickname.
He was the dog-faced gremlin.
There it is. There it is. One of my favorite nicknames in all of sports or sports entertainment, the dog-faced gremlin. Happy birthday tomorrow to the great Rick Steiner. I love it. Love it. All right, there you go. Those are
I'm sorry.
That's the sick things I take pride in. Go ahead, Catch.
I got to say, well done on the questions today.
There you
go. I like it. Buy or sell number one as a Jersey guy, Jonte Cook taking over jersey number one for the Longhorns on the offensive side of the ball. Yep, that's an absolute buy for you.
Yeah, it's a buy, and it's a good indicator, I think, as well. There is no way to reference Buford T again. There's no way they're letting him wear that one if they thought he wasn't getting those reps, if they thought he wasn't in the main level plan. If you're a DeSoto freak, if you're a Jonte Cook freak like me and Catch, and you're ready for this guy to explode, I think that number one is a good indicator. That's a buy.
This is the only show in existence where both hosts are making a Buford T. Justice reference in the same show in like different manners.
Yes.
But I just think that it's funny that you went Buford T complete with the there's no way. And you're giving me credit. You're giving me guff about the Nick Foles joke. I mean, we're both pretty sick and demented.
No, not guff. I was impressed. It just looked like I looked like you wanted to land professionally, and then you just took that turn right at the end. It was fantastic.
Some people have a different idea of what professionalism looks like.
You are correct.
Buy or sell number two. The Texas roster has been out for now a couple of hours, and I don't know that Arch Manning's height and weight, newly verified, has gone viral yet. You're surprised.
Bye. But I'm assuming Anwar is going to tweet it out, and the folks in Bangladesh will react pretty immediately. 26 million views later. Yes, I am shocked that there hasn't been some reaction to Arch Manning. If I was Arch, I would have told them just for like 20 minutes, fake everybody out and put a wrong height and weight and put a wrong jersey number. Like put 51 out there or just do something weird. But yeah, I'm a little surprised we haven't already had some Arch story.
Hold on before I go to question number 3. Wait a minute.
Uh-oh.
Anwar has unpinned. He has a new pinned tweet at the top of his Twitter page.
A new pinned tweet that replaced the soccer dad tweet?
No, it was the dancing. It was back when Titan was a baby.
Oh, the dancing baby he replaced. I thought he had the one where he was like the proud dad and the goal.
It is. I clearly haven't like purposefully gone to his page to see that video in a couple of months because there is the proud dad alert. I understand why that's up there. The other one was his viral video. I wanted to count how many millions of people had seen that tweet compared to the Arch Manning. So my question number 3 was going to be about millions of views on tweets. I'll just go this. Buy or sell number 3. 26 million views on that Arch Manning tweet. Kind of absurd.
Oh, yeah. Buy. And it absolutely tells you where we are headed. And we discussed it a lot on the show and the shows that you were gone. But the circus that we're about to get into, it's legendary, it's historic, and there's not one person that knows exactly what this is going to be. Anwar put out a tweet about a video game, and it got 26 million views. That's incredible.
That also, maybe we should all buy stock in NCAA 20. It's in the game, apparently. It is actually, he's not in the game, but
it's going to be big. Yep.
Buy or sell number 4. Do you plan to see Dune 2 in the movie theaters?
I think right now that is a sell. My daughter is a Timothée Chalamet freak. She digs Zendaya, but she hasn't seen the first one. So my gut is a sell and that we are not going to end up there. Didn't care about the first one back in the day. I have not seen this new first one. I would go if she wants to, but right now I think it's a sell.
I've seen the first one with Chalamet like 4 or 5 times.
Okay.
I was watching it last night because I plan on seeing it this weekend, the
Part 2.
the sequel.
Yeah.
My wife walked in and Heather said, "Oh, you're watching." She like it was like an accusation. "You're watching Dune?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've seen this movie like a handful of times. You know, this isn't the new one that just came out."
Mm-hmm.
And then she let me know that she wants to. This was all new information to me. She wants to see the sequel. She didn't see the first one, and the thing for me is I didn't see the first one in the theater. And watching it on a regular television, I was like, God, this would have been badass to see at an IMAX.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I'm in. Plus, I've seen reviews of this. Somebody earlier this week rated it above The Godfather 2 as a sequel. And
that's fantastic. Yeah, where's what I'm hoping. When the reviews got so bad for Madam Web, my daughter had to go see it. I'm hoping they get so good for Dune 2. She goes the other way and says, well, now we got to go see it. So we'll see.
And finally, I'll show you. This was going to be, is it still up there? Here. Oh, I have to save it before I can show it. This is how far along. No, that's not what I was trying to do.
No.
This was, then the roster came out.
Wait a minute. The Oscars are this Sunday night?
Yes.
Oh, that's exciting. Okay.
The Oscars are out. And what I was going to ask was, of the 10 best picture nominations, you've seen less than 4. So that means 3 or less.
Yeah.
I'm going to read them out to you, okay?
Okay. So 3. Okay. 3 or less than 4. Go ahead.
You've got The Holdovers,
Mm-hmm.
American Fiction,
Mm-hmm.
The Zone of Interest, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, Past Lives, Anatomy of a Fall, Maestro, Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah.
The 10.
That is you said I have seen less than 4.
So
that is definitely it's a buy. My guess was going to be Barbenheimer is all I've got, and that is true. Saw Barbie, I saw Oppenheimer. I have not seen any of the other 8. As sad as that is.
Okay, real quick, in the event that you were looking for movies.
Okay.
The Holdovers is going to be a new Christmas classic.
Yeah, you've said that, and I love Giamatti. So at some point, I'm going to see that movie.
Poor Things is so wild. You see so much of Emma Stone naked in Poor Things. You literally won't know what to do with yourself. And the images
I've heard it gets a little crazy.
And then Anatomy of a Fall, really good foreign film that was among the best. I think it's a strong group of movies this year. I'm letting you know the movies I think you would probably like amongst.
Okay, so I have a good friend of mine that watches all the Oscar movies every year. He is convinced, interestingly enough, he's convinced that he hasn't seen a movie better than Barbie. His wife couldn't stand it. So where are you? Are you in the Oppenheimer category? Is there another one? Do you think there's an absolute for sure best picture?
Oppenheimer's an all-time great movie.
Okay.
And a lot of technical reasons as well, but it's easily the best movie of the year.
Okay. So that would be your prediction there. And do you think anybody in Barbie is going to get an Oscar?
Billie Eilish.
Oh, okay. The song will get it. That is a great song. Yeah.
Although I would have had Dua Lipa in there. I thought that was the better song, but that's just me.
All right, fair enough. There are some good songs in there. Sunday night, the Oscars. Got to check that out. All right, real quick catch before we finish off. A couple things. One, did you see the Anthony Edwards block last night?
Yes. Wow.
Holy crap. There are moments sometimes in the NBA that will just cut through everything else. Anthony Edwards, the situation too made it great. Up 2, he's on the line and he missed. And instead of sulking, he follows the play back down the floor. This literally less than 5 seconds to go. As the time is expiring, he jumps, blocks the shot, hits his head on the rim, and his elbow was even with the rim. He said it's as high as he's ever jumped. And then he basically falls on his face, and he hit his wrist hard enough that he thought for a second he might have broken his wrist. But then he just pops up because he's a freak, and they win the game. It was crazy.
It was crazy. If they gave any of us Anthony Edwards' athletic ability for a day, that's what would happen to us. Like, oh, I'm going to go out and do a dunk. Oh, I hit my head and I hurt my arm and I fell. And that's what would happen to us.
Dude, it was unbelievable. The other little gift I want to give you before I have the week off next week, if it could help you, I did look this up. Texas has never had 3 first-round picks and 3 second-round picks in the same draft, ever. It's never happened. They've had 3 in the first round one time in 80. They had 3 in the second round in 1982. But they've never had 3 firsts and 3 seconds. So if that happens, this Texas team is going to have to replace the greatest first and second round haul ever in the history of the program just to add something to this season.
Is that a lot, Chad?
Seems like a lot. And your comparison real quick, Catch, the whole time Saban was at Bama, he had that happen twice. Wow. 2017 and 2020. And if Texas does steal
that stat this weekend, by the way.
There you go. I looked it up. I thought you might appreciate it, but it is that good. I just asked myself about, has that ever happened in the first? And I'm like, let's
every once in a while, every couple of years, you come up with a stat that I just flat out steal.
There you go. You can steal it.
Stealing that.
There you go. And the other side stat, 2 offensive players have never been drafted from Texas in the same first round. 2 offensive guys. That's what, with those 2 receivers, that's history. It's always been offense and defense, or 2 defensive guys if they're both, first round. So
something to watch for.
There you go. Something to check out. All right. Anything else you need to hit, Catch, or are we done?
Enjoy your week off next week.
Hey, man, thank you so much. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to take a little spring break. We're going to go hang with the in-laws a little bit and get to see them. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Y'all have a good time next week. And then in a couple weeks, when I'm back, it's going to be spring practice time. We're only 11 days away, Catch. It is almost here.
By the way, I just see that Orange Bloods has a tweet that says, need Red to get fed more this season. I got to find out who sent that tweet.
I'm telling you, this Savion Red at 240 might be the story of the roster today. It may break the internet. All right. Reminder, like, subscribe, get your notifications to Orange Bloods Live. We appreciate your support. We appreciate all the great sponsors that help us out, including Specs with that Specs chat. Everybody have a great Friday and a great weekend. Until Monday at noon, we are house divided.